Hi, Elisa.
Hi, Leanne.
We've been in John 4 for a few weeks. What more can we learn from the Samaritan woman and Jesus, and in relations to the heart of worship?
Thanks, Leanne. Yeah, so, and we could be here forever. But today we are looking at this Samaritan woman and how Jesus says to her, you have had 5 husbands, and the man you're now with isn't your husband. After he tells her to go call her husband. And we talked about how she's already understood Jesus to be gentle and kind and receiving of her, and he promises to give her a life and abundant life through water that would never have her finding herself thirsty again. And so she's recognized his faithfulness and the truth of Messiah, who she's standing with, and who he's brought himself to stand there with her. So what this picture of her having 5 husbands, those are legal marriages over and over, and then certificate of divorce over and over and over. And it made me think of a dream that I had once. And the Bible is clear that God wants to give dreams to people, dreams and visions, and I am not exclusive in this. He loves to teach us and show us who he is and his heart and his plans through dreams and visions, as well as obviously the word, the Bible. So this dream that I had, I was a bridesmaid, and I was in this room. There was no furniture, it was bare, and it was dark. There was no light, and just barely natural light pouring through in some places. And this bride who I was there to serve she was very old. And Leanne, she was gaunt. She was so worn and so thin and spent. And there were other bridesmaids in the room, and I remember the words spoken were around, well, at least she's getting married, at least she's not an old maid, at least, and just all these qualifiers placed on this person. And it wasn't a celebration that I was there in service to. It was a obligation and a expectation, but not healthy, not joyful. It was just this is what we do. And I was there doing up the buttons on her dress, starting at her back, and recognized that the dress wasn't new. It was a hand-me-down, and it was so worn, and it was yellowed with time, and it wasn't radiant. She wasn't radiant. She wasn't joyful. And so I started doing up the buttons, and I think I might have got 2 buttons out of who knows how many, like 40 done up, and I just couldn't continue. And I left that room and went toward the light. And that was the dream. And I woke from it weeping, recognizing how, as the church, but the church, the Bible talks about Jesus returning for a bride who is radiant and abundantly alive. So abundance speaks of fullness and not gauntness and not lack and not at least, but seeking him as being the source and provider and living water and fullness, right? So I recognized where I lack and where I haven't experienced that fullness, and where my my wedding gown for this groom that's returning, King Jesus, is not a new, clean, spotless one, but one that might be full of expectations from before, or man-made systems and ways we've done things. And also, Leanne, not recognizing the fullness of the bride he wants to return for, meaning how many people he wants to know him in the way that woman experienced him at that well. And he spoke to an area that was probably shame for her, according to her culture. He spoke to an area that was maybe guilt. It doesn't say she had any children, and maybe that's why she had had that many divorces issued to her. And yet he spoke of who she was. And I just want to read this one part here. It says in verse 21, Jesus declared, "Believe me, woman, a time is coming when you will worship the Father neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem." And that word woman actually means someone who is becoming. I've checked it again. I'm not saying that's the only meaning of that, but that word woman, and it's only in some translations, means someone who's becoming. And so Jesus doesn't look at us where we're at only. He meets us where we're at with love and truth and abundant life and life-giving water. But then he calls to us and calls us to who we are created to be and who we are becoming as we see his face, and as we look on him. So I'm just encouraged with that heart of worship today, that he wants to do so much more than we can ask or imagine. He wants to bring so many more people to understand the beauty, the holiness, the wonder, the splendor that is this humble servant King Jesus, the Lamb who meets us where we're at, and gave his life and his blood, and did not remain dead, but rose to be able to bring that resurrection in our lives too, in yours, in mine, in yours, whoever is listening, and bring an abundant life and a fullness. And so I think what I wanted to get across today is the spirit of truth, but also worshiping in spirit. So when we bring our songs and our words and our prayer and our hearts, we have to remember that he not only sees us where we're at now, but he sees who we're becoming, and he speaks to who we're becoming. And when we do lift our voices in song to him, it's easy to get stuck in who we've been and to have what's past or what's pressing be what comes out. And yet he sees who we are and who we're becoming. And so I just want to encourage every worshiper that you are seen for who he's created you to be, just like 2 Corinthians 5 says. Thanks.